Hey guys, sorry I did not do a video earlier today. I had to go to town early this morning and run some errands, and then before work I went to see a matinee of the movie Roofman. So sorry about the lighting and everything. I'm coming home, it's dark. I've had to restart this like 3 times because this fucking camera keeps falling. But I think from now on I'm just going to try to stick to 1 or 2 topics because I tend to ramble and go all over the place. I remember I took a quiz on Facebook a few years ago, and it was how does your brain work, or how do you function, and mine said that it worked like a GPS on the fritz, that one idea comes to my head and then I'll think of something else, and I have trouble staying on topic, so I'm going to practice trying to stay on topic. So today or tonight, the 2 things I'm going to talk about are, well, first of all, I went to see the movie Roofman, and my impressions of that, it was really good. I didn't know if it would be that good. The previews didn't really do it justice, and the previews made it almost seem like it's going to be like a silly comedy. It wasn't a silly comedy. In fact, I didn't even think it was that funny. I thought it was more sad than it was funny, because the premise is this guy. It starts out with this guy. Sorry, there was a light flashing. It starts out with this guy, and he got discharged from the military. They don't really explain why or anything. And he's supposed to be really smart, which he is. If you see, this is also based on a true story. He has his daughter's birthday party, and he lives in this shitty apartment, and she wants a bicycle for her birthday, and he doesn't have any money really. And it shows the cake, and the cake's in basically a pie pan, and it looks kind of pathetic. It's not like some really nice store-bought cake or even like a really good homemade cake. And so that's like the first impression you get, that this guy doesn't have any money. So she opens her present, and it is an erector set that he had when he was a kid. And you can tell she's disappointed. And so he feels like a loser, and he decides he's going to provide for his children because he's split up from his wife. And so he gets to see his kids. I'm not sure, they didn't really go into that. I'm assuming on the weekends. And he has like 2 twin boys that are babies, and then he has the girl that's probably, I'm guessing, like 5 or 6. And so he starts going on top of roofs and busting his way in and stealing money, and he will tie the people up or put them in a freezer. But he's kind of a polite crook. He knows it's wrong, but he wants the money. So like at the beginning, he takes these people and he makes them get in the freezer like at the McDonald's. And he did this, and then it shows ahead in the future the girl's next birthday, and she gets the bike. And he's apparently done this, I believe they said 45 times, where he robbed McDonald's and Burger King, and they're looking for him. Well, he gives the girl a bike, and they have this nice party, and then the cops show up. He's running from the cops. He goes to prison, and they sentence him to 45 years in prison, which I think seems kind of excessive. He didn't kill anybody, but because they put kidnapping charges, and he robbed all these places, it added up. And so he gets 45 years, and he eventually figures out a way to escape. He gets under this truck because he's in prison, and he does like mechanic work or something. I'm not exactly sure what he does. It didn't really specify, but he gets under this truck and he escapes. And he doesn't know what to do. And he has this friend that he can make him fake IDs and passports, but his friend ends up going to Afghanistan for some reason. And it's kind of funny, it takes place in 2004, and there's still payphones. And that's probably kind of around the last time you're going to see payphones, because I used to work with a guy that worked for the telephone company, and that's what he did. He went and repaired payphones, and he started working on our crew back. And this was probably around 2004. I want to say sooner than that, because there weren't many payphones. So the guy uses, a payphone to get in touch with this guy. He's gone, so he's like, oh shit, what am I going to do? And he decides, he sees a Toys R Us, and he decides, hey, I'm going to stay at this Toys R Us, and he finds a spot in the Toys R Us that's not occupied. It's kind of like there's a wall, and it's behind this wall, it's this empty space, and he eventually figures out how to turn off the security camera so he can walk free in the Toys R Us at night. And then he just sleeps during the day, the guy's really smart. I mean, I don't understand why he had to resort to all these crimes, because it seems like he could take his skills and knowledge and do something worthwhile. But that was kind of what they talked about too. He didn't do well in school. It just goes to show you don't always need school. There's a lot of smart people and a lot of dumb shits that go to school. But anyway, I digress. So he goes to Toys R Us, and then he starts watching the cameras. He gets these baby monitor things, and he puts them in different parts of the store, and he starts watching. And Kirsten Dunst's character in it, I think her name is Lee, she needs time off, or she needs like every other weekend off because she shares custody with her kids, or she needs to be there for her daughters because she's recently divorced. And Peter Dinklage plays the boss, and he's kind of a prick, and he basically doesn't give a shit. And so the roofman guy, his name's Jeff, he sees, what's going on, and he sees through the camera the guy's password because he's spying on them. And so he gets the password, and so he goes through and he changes the schedule. So he allows her to be off all these weekends. And he also stays hidden for, I think, about a month, because he said, he's been on the news, everybody's looking for him. And if he goes out, somebody will recognize him. And this was before social media. Now there's no way in hell he would have probably been caught right away. I mean, it took a couple weeks before they found that Luigi Mangione. So I'm sure this guy would have been caught a lot sooner. But his whole thing was, just let it die down. People don't have attention spans. They're going to forget about it. And then he can, figure out what to do. So he calls the passport guy. I think I mentioned this. So he's got to lay low till December 1st. That's when this guy's coming back. So he's got like the run of the Toys R Us, and he's eating M&Ms because he likes peanut M&Ms. And Peter Dinklage's character notices, because he's the manager, that, hey, all these M&Ms are missing. And he blames this other worker that's kind of he's a little chubby. Because he's a prick, he has to blame this guy, even though there's no proof. And so the whole time the security cameras are off and everything, and he's watching the Kirsten Dunst character talk to Peter Dinklage, like, hey, my church is having this toy drive, if you want to bring a toy and come to our church. I'm not a church person, I'm not going to go. And so he throws the thing in the trash, and Jeff, the roofman, sees it. At night he goes in there, he grabs the thing out of the trash, and he basically steals a bunch of toys from Toys R Us, and he shows up there and gives her the toys. And at first, he's skeptical about being around people. He doesn't want somebody to see him or, figure out who he is. And he shows up there, and everybody likes him, and nobody's suspicious of anything with him. And he ends up hooking up with Kirsten Dunst, and they fall in love, and she has these two daughters. One's supposed to be 16, one's 11. The 11-year-old likes him right off the bat because he wants to make an impression, so he gives her a Link doll from Zelda, because it's funny because I remember those two. It was really cool. I even talk about the whole Toys R Us aspect of this movie. But the Link, that's who you like Zelda, and then he gives her one of the games. And he starts stealing the games from Toys R Us and taking them to a pawn shop and getting all this money. And then you find out later in the movie the guy stole like 10 grand worth of video games, and that's how he's affording to buy things. And because he has to go to the dentist because he's getting cavities from eating all these M&Ms. Because he ate baby food. I'm not sure what else. I'm assuming the guy didn't just live off M&Ms, because he's in pretty good shape. I mean, he could pull himself up and go over that wall that he had hidden. But the thing was, he kind of lost his family. That was another reason he escaped, because he tried to call the daughter on the phone, and the wife, there's a new man in our life, and he feels left out, like he lost his family. And then he kind of gets this new family with Kirsten Dunst's daughters and her, and it's real sweet, but it's not going to end well. I'm not going to give the ending away. I mean, you can look it up. It's based on a true story. And at the end of the movie, they did show kind of what happened to these people. What happened to these people when they, after all this was said and done. And I don't know, I love seeing the way they recreated Toys R Us. And I don't know where this was filmed, because we don't have Toys R Us anymore. Maybe Canada, I think they still have Toys R Us. I know Japan has one, or a couple actually, because they had all the big the big Jeffries and all this stuff. I know because I'm a nerd that collects toys, and so I'm familiar with this. But they even had kind of the era, like I saw some Spawn toys in the background. But it was neat how they did that, and it was kind of cool that that's where he lived. If I was going to have to live in a store, yeah, that's where I would have wanted to live too. Or maybe a furniture store, and then you could sleep on some nice couches and have a nice recliner to kick back and read in. But it was really good. It was really good. And, I think it probably won't be in theaters very long, because nothing seems to be in theaters very long these days except for big movies like Superman, and for some reason that shitty Conjuring movie's still playing. I don't know. I'm almost home, so I will go ahead since I gave a lot of the movie away, but it's worth really go see it. People always say Hollywood doesn't make good movies anymore. That's kind of bullshit. They do. I've noticed the people that always say that never go to the movies. I mean, there was some shit movies, don't get me wrong, and I think during COVID I didn't see a lot of movies because they weren't making a lot of movies, and they were just showing mostly old movies, so I would go see old movies that I had already seen. But that's when they were starting to show a lot of the fucking woke stuff. But there are a lot of good movies, and I would consider this a good movie that's worth going to see for sure. And the other thing I was going to talk about before I make it home real quick is, it's so weird. Yesterday I was talking about Kiss, but Ace Frehley died, and I hated to see that. I met him about 10, 12 years ago. I don't remember exactly when, at the Texas Frightmare weekend. And I was kind of surprised he was even there. He wasn't charging very much for an autograph either. Peter Criss was there the following year, and he was charging like a lot more. And I thought, Ace is cooler than Peter Criss. I remember he kept us waiting, which was kind of irritating. But, he's a flake. I don't know if he drank anymore, but everybody knew he was like, him and Peter Criss were the two guys in Kiss that partied. I could do a whole podcast just about Kiss. I've been following them since I was a teenager. And Ace was my favorite guy. Ace and Paul Stanley, I kind of go back and forth. I liked Ace because he seemed like the fun guy. He wasn't that friendly, but I don't know if it's necessarily that he wasn't a dick, but he wasn't like friendly. I think it's just that New York attitude, because I met David Johansen and he wasn't very friendly either. And I met Dee Snider and he had that same kind of attitude. So I don't know, maybe it's something about musicians from New York that just aren't very personable. I don't know. I don't want to say, because I grew up in the Midwest, but I lived, in the South a lot of my life too. And people in the South are pretty friendly, but I was really sad to see that, God, Ozzy died, earlier this summer. So we lost Ozzy, and then we'll lose Ace, and it's just kind of sad. You get older, and, Ace was a big part of my, teenage years. I dressed like him when we went to the Kiss concert the first time I saw Kiss. And I don't know, I hated to see that, and it was just strange because I was just talking about Kiss, and Mosca texted, and he's like, oh, I'm sorry to, about Ace, and I said, what, did he die? Yeah, he died. And it's like, what the fuck? So anyway, I'm about home, so I'm going to close up. I'm sorry if the sound is bad. The sound with the headphones isn't that great either, so sorry, this is just what it is. But in the future, look for other videos. I am working on a cooking video. Paul's supposed to help me edit it. I already recorded the cooking parts. I just have to kind of do a few things, and Benji's going to be in it, and that's kind of the kicker. It's going to be kind of funny with Benji the dog. So anyway, guys, thanks for sticking with me, the few of you that do watch me. I appreciate it. Bye.